some pictures so I can build you a slide. That's right.
They got me mixed between NCR and CDC. I don't even know.
I thought you were CDC.
They got me grading online again.
Make me so mad. All right. You'll hear us talk about this throughout the month. But all right, so welcome to CDC. 3.0 really means nothing to you. It's just the third rendition of the class since I've taken over about 6 years ago. So here we are. Does anybody have any questions before we get into the meat and potatoes and stuff? Kind of want to go through the first section here, the slides, pretty quickly, get you into a little bit more of the looking at the assignments right out of the gate. Yeah. I thought I hit okay.
Okay.
Is it good?
Yes.
It's going? Good. Okay, cool. Good. All right, so as you do know, we record all these lectures, or you've probably seen, like, if you've read through all this stuff, it probably talked about the go-to trainings and whatnot. So I still encourage you to take notes, but if not, you have the lecture, right? You'll be able to watch that later. It takes about 24 hours roughly to get that up after we, because the process is, I like you guys to know the process, so maybe give me a little bit of slack on something. But we record it. I go back to my desk. I have to download it, which takes 35 minutes to an hour. And then I've got to upload it to YouTube. And then I've got to take that link and I've got to post it, write up a synopsis, and then post it in 3 different spots. 3 different classes. And this month's only 2, so shave off about 15 minutes, and we're good to go. But you know, that happens. Sometimes I get to it right away. Sometimes I have meetings in the afternoon. I don't get it posted till the next day. So getting those notes, if it's something you need for the lab or it's something you need for what you're working on, take notes, and you'll be sure to have that information. But they are recorded, and you can jump on too if you want to. Jump in, and sometimes it's hard to see what I'm pushing up here, and you'd rather be, you know, looking at your screen and watching what I'm doing right there. So that's up to you. All right, so this class has been set up to take away fear of failure. I mean, yes, you can fail. I'm not saying I want you to fail, but we want you to start working and get things done. Don't love it? Just do it. Do it. I don't know anybody that's really kind of gone through and hit all the benchmarks. Maybe they get a D every week, still pass. Still can pass. I don't want to say you're going to pass, but you still can pass. You know, and it is a lot of work, but we can't, you know, NASA, now we got the other guy, you know, SpaceX putting rockets up there, it's exploding. They don't give up. They do it again. They evaluate and they do it again. So eventually you're going to get to that mark, and it happens at different times for each of us, but we all know where we're at, right? We're not at the UCF 3.5 months for one class, right? We're at Full Sail, 4 weeks is one class. So if you trip up mid-week 1, this could potentially affect 2 weeks, and each week is worth 20%. So if you screw up 2 weeks, it is a little bit more difficult in this style of schooling to recoup. Okay, but we are here to help. You just have to utilize that help. Okay, but try, and remember how powerful you are. Right? Again, this is something where people second guess themselves a lot, and I want you not to, because literally you have the undo button. You have the ability to save multiple versions. There is really nothing that should keep you from trying something. If it doesn't work, undo. If it crashes, open up and you've lost 10 minutes, right? If you're not doing those things, yeah, it's probably very scary, because you know that if you screw something up, you've lost 5 or 6 hours worth of work. But you should be saving on a regular basis. You should be saving iterations, and you should be saving on multiple devices, not just this. Right? Everybody should have a Wizzy stick or a Google Drive or a Dropbox or an external hard drive, something. Wizzy stick is a flash drive, by the way. Something that you can save here, and at the end of your lab, put it somewhere else. Make a copy of it, put it somewhere else. That way, again, you're not really going to run into problems there. Okay, but do not be afraid. We can do anything in 3D that we want to. We just have to figure out how to do it. Right? So you can do it. That is me, Mr. Scarcella. Marcus is my name. I want to really take down the whole instructor-student type barrier. If you're afraid to ask questions, you're afraid to come see me at my office or my desk. It's not really even an office. You know, maybe getting to know who I am helps with that. I don't know. I used to be in your seat 15, 16 years ago, and I complained about a lot of the similar things that you complain about. Now I'm on the other side, and I kind of see why some of those things can't be done. I've slept on the floors. I've slept in my car. I've worked which I started talking to people that weren't there. Like, I know what you're going through, and it sucks, and it's hard, and it's very hard to do anything other than this. But I remember playing Metroid on the Nintendo. I didn't have a book or pamphlet or anything that was cheap, and I was a kid. I didn't go buy one of the walkthroughs, and I played that game for days, and it was fun. I do this for days because it's fun. So if you're not loving it, maybe you need to leave it. Okay. So again, it's me. Marvelous Monday. We got a participator. James just for some reason hates our shirt days. But we have a couple shirt days. If it helps you get dressed in the morning, you don't have to think too much. But we do Marvelous Mondays, Trekkie Yellow Shirt Tuesday, Vest Wednesday, Purse Day Thursday, and Freestyle Friday. We'll just call it Freestyle Friday. We haven't really nailed down anything for Friday because I realize that through shirt days, I'm not wearing all of the clothes that I have. So wear whatever you want on Friday. But you'll definitely be here for Marvelous Monday and Vest Wednesday. So Wednesday, I expect to see some vests and online students. If you want to send me pictures of you in a vest on Wednesday, that works out too, right? Got my two kids there. I'll tell you what, when I go home, that's probably most of what I spend my time doing. So if you're one that's like, oh, I'll email him at 8 o'clock and see if he can't meet me, it's probably not going to happen. They're young. They require a lot of time and attention. I've done my time working 24 hours straight. You know, I'm here from 9 to 5. I go home, usually shut down until about 11 o'clock when they're finally in bed. And if in the chance that I make it through listening to the relaxing, soothing lullaby music and I don't fall asleep myself, I usually get up and I'll check my emails and maybe get into some other things as well. So I like stuff. You like stuff. If there's anything up there that you like that I like and you want to talk and that helps break down that wall of fear of talking to an instructor, so be it. Yeah, I like cheesy movies. I like Mean Girls, Easy A, Clueless. All of them. They're fun. They're fun. They're fun movies. 3D printing, drones, RC, anything, games. You know, I'm into all that stuff there. So use it or what. And now the other instructor we've got here is James. He's been here. He's got to get me some pictures. Huh?
Yeah, 3, 4 months now.
Yeah, 3, 4 months now, steady with CDC. He's great. He will be working in labs with you. Awesome guy. Please utilize his knowledge and his patience. He's probably one of the most patient people we have. Yeah, he's a good guy. So wave to everybody, James.
How's it going? You guys are ready to work?
Good, 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 good. All right, so class rules. They're the same as they've always been. No food or drink. Drinks are okay unofficially, right? I mean, it is blasted on all the windows. People seem to not care about that kind of stuff. I would always do what you're supposed to do until someone tells you you can do otherwise, right? But to save my butt, if somebody were to come in and go, why do they have drinks? I'm like, I don't know, right? But I have a drink over there. I mean, food though, let's keep food out. Cell phones on silent. Respectful. If you got to get a call, please exit. Badges on invisible. This is on invisible, right? It's a super cool piece of jewelry. It's the most expensive one you'll probably ever own. Take it off as you're walking home, right? You don't want to be a target, but again, you got to have it on. And I was, you know, you get back into the whole, like when Greg was here, and I would always, you know, reference Greg. He worked at EA, and there's no way in hell you're getting into EA without a badge. right? They're not going to be like, oh, it's in my pocket. It's holding my keys. They're like, I don't care. It's got to be on you, or you're not getting through these doorways. So definitely have that. Laptops used for notes and follow along only, right? So if you're working on stuff, that's cool. If you're watching videos, sit somewhere that you're not going to distract anybody else. And I always say it, I reserve the right not to answer any of your questions. Okay, so we'll go with that. Keep it professional, but still have fun. You got to enjoy this stuff. If you don't enjoy it, don't do it. Right? This is not, I don't even care. And if I hear this, I'm probably going to giggle on the inside, and then, I don't know, a big wave of sadness will come over me. I'm not a modeler. I'm an animator, so I don't really care about this stuff. Why? Why would you put yourself in a corner this early into your career? Why would you classify yourself right away? I mean, I knew I was a modeler, but when I took rigging class, I was a rigger. And when I took animation, I was an animator. And then when I wasn't doing classwork, I'd do my modeling, right? I don't want to hear that. I only did a little bit because I'm this, you know. You don't really know what you are yet, okay? You might do something. You might claim yourself to be, and I use animator because animation modeling is usually the one I hear. I'm an animator. Well, guess what? You might suck at animation. But for some reason, you're a darn good modeler. Do what gets you the job, and then spread your wings, right? So harness, be observant. You might love something. You got tons of years in the industry to figure where you want to go or get to where you want to go. Now it's about getting out of school, getting a job, get that step of your career taken care of. So we'll just do it all like we love it. And again, always having fun. And anytime you're being professional, anytime you're in this room, those rules are in effect, right? When you're in lab, it's the same thing. No drinks, no food. That's definitely a no drinks whatsoever, because there's a lot of machines in there, right? If you spill on your machine, I don't care. You spill on one of those other machines, we'll get in trouble, and then we really care, and it's not fun, right? So just make sure you're doing that stuff. Okay, campus versus online. So there might be a time when you ask a question, and I might refer you to FSO. I might refer to FSO because there might be a slight difference between campus versus online, and since they are sharing lecture time with us, I can't say those things because they're like, well, why can't we do that? Or vice versa. There are certain things that we have found to be better left one way for online curriculum, just on contactability and all that stuff. You guys are here, you get to ask questions. They're away and they got to do through emails. And campus, we found that there's some things that work online but don't work here. So there are some differences. But we've spent hours, days, months writing FSO. I just spent all of Blade Runner 2049, right? So this is what happens the Sunday night before classes launch. I spent at least 4 hours changing dates, copying over from last month to the new month, going through changing dates, changing assignment due dates and stuff, adding verbiage, taking away verbiage, correcting things. So last night, just to move the reading and resources section from the top of the assignments all the way to the bottom so you get to the instructions a little bit sooner, 2 hours and 49 minutes, I think, is what Blade Runner runs. And all of today, since I got in, at about 9:45 is when I got in today, till about 11:30, trying to get, I'm not even done with campus, right? So we spent hours and hours and hours writing FSO, and it kills me when someone's like, hey, so what's this assignment worth? And I'm like, hey, just go to FSO. It's right there, right? I can't remember it all. I do forget sometimes. I'll be like, well, I think it's 3%, but actually it's worth 2.5%. And then you yell at me because I gave you the wrong information. So always go to online or the FSO portal. That's going to know more than us, right? And we go to it a lot too, because again, it's a lot of stuff written there. So check it out. All right, so what you're going to be getting into this month, a lot of work, okay? So we've got 100%, and this is how it's broken down. 10% your professionalism. This will get into your attendance mainly, right? So your attendance is your professionalism, or if you throw something at somebody, you spit on somebody, you start a fight, you're just rude, you send me a crappy email, something like that could affect professionalism. But for the most part, it's your attendance is really what we look at. So you show up on time, your professional works out pretty good. Participation, this is where we get into things like daily submissions, right? And you know, James will be shark in the room, and if he notices that every time he passes your desk, you're on the internet or you're watching videos that aren't CG related at all. And I don't mean like, hey, I'm watching Toy Story, right? That is CG, but you know what I mean? It's not, it's not working for you. He's going to mark you on the attendance roster. He's not going to tell you. He's going to say, off task, 5 points GPS. He might tell you, but we don't have to tell you. You know what you're doing, right? So when you look at your thing and go, oh, wow, I got a 75. What happened? Well, I remember watching a lot of videos in class and not actually working. Maybe that's what happened. So the participation there also goes into, not professional, sorry, participation grade. Participation also goes into daily posts. This confuses a lot of people, but every day that you are in class, you're going to take a screenshot of what you worked on that day. This is in no way your submission. This is just a daily update to us as to where you're at, and it also helps you keep tabs of where you're at. So you're going to all right, class is almost over. Let me go ahead. I worked on this character. I selected these images, and I touched this one up. So let me kind of put those on my screen, screenshot it, name it, submit it. All right, so all it is just a daily post of where you're at. Each one is worth 1% roughly, unless you start, kind of chipping away at the grade because you're off task or something like that. Each one of those will be 1%. And it never fails. People forget like 3 or 4 of them. They're like, oh, can I resubmit those? I'm like, unfortunately, you can't because it's a daily. Right? And they auto grade, which is nice. If you miss the deadline, even if it's by 30 seconds, by 1 second, it shuts down, right? And it gives a 0. It auto zeroes that out. Okay? So that is basically your participation. Work when you're supposed to be working and submit your dailies. Okay? Everything else is broken down 20% per week. We kept it nice and even. So week 1, we're doing first reads and blockouts. All right, so this is where we select characters and we rough them out really quickly. Okay, we do a study on how to examine their silhouette and their main parts and pieces, and then we build 6 blockouts of those characters. We select 6 characters, we block them out. Okay, anything goes as far as character selection. Some people go, oh, hey, that one's really great. And I want you to be thinking about, as you're looking for your characters, be looking at it going, hey, this is a really good one. This is fine for week 1. But once I go into week 2, they're probably going to be a little bit shy of an acceptable asset, right? So an example of this would be, we've got some that have just a loincloth on them. They're great for week 1. Taking them beyond week 1, they really don't have the complexity necessary. And really what happens is they can have the complexity. It really depends on what you do as an artist to them to keep the complexity up. But people run out of what to do with it. They're like, hey, it's kind of done. I don't know where to take it into week 3 because it doesn't really offer opportunities to really develop some of the things we're looking for. Sorry. Some of the things we're really looking for. That was like a weird yawn hiccup thing as I was talking. So you got to be careful with that. Remember, evaluate, look at your stuff and say, all right, these are great for this week. Maybe that's all I'm going to do. So as we get into week 2, week 3, we'll talk about what you're going to be doing in those weeks, and that will help you decide which characters you want to move forward with. So week 2, we start getting into second read. So we're going to start looking at the character reference and start developing an eye for some of the finer details. Right? Looking at silhouette's easy, but understanding how the wrinkles and the cross-sectioning works, the contours of the surface work, the 3D form work, that's a little bit more. It takes a little bit more of a trained eye. So we're going to spend time doing that. And then we're going to go from 6 to 4. We're going to take 4 of our characters that we like, and we're going to bring them forward and start breaking them into their clothing parts and pieces and refining the layers, refining thicknesses, and really going from one solid mesh to multiple meshes, structures, and nice and solid. Week 3, well, week 3 we get into refinement of refinement. So we take 2 characters forward, right? So you see we drop 2 every week. Okay, so we go from 4 to 2 in week 3. And now we've already got, in week 2, we've got a nice character that's got good structure on them. Pants are the pants, but they don't have all the wrinkles. The pants don't have the seams. The shirt doesn't have all the wrinkles and seam work. The face is going to be more of just a muted planes of the face skull structure. So in week 3, let's put those details on. Let's build eyelids. Let's build lips. Let's actually push the nostrils up. Let's refine the shapes and take them to high-end secondary forms, okay? And then we're also going to build some stuff for them. Right? It's not just a character. What if they have a sword? What if they have a shield? What if they have a backpack? We can build some accessories for them as well. Week 4, we get into a little bit more of a finishing process. So we look at building hair, right? We will be modeling hair. We're not going to be getting into hair systems. That's more of the technical department, rigging style stuff. But we'll be modeling hair for our final 2 characters. We're going to be resurfacing the heads for our final 2 characters. We're going to be UVing the heads for the final 2 characters. We will be creating or transferring normal map information, right? Generating normal maps for those final 2 characters. And that's really how we finish it up. Now, week 4, sorry, is a little bit more compressed because we run into like Monday. Usually people go from Monday to Monday, and then that one ends on the Sunday. So, but all this stuff there in week 4 is pretty, that's probably, I would say that's the easiest week, is other than resurfacing. I think resurfacing is a little bit tough if you've not done it before. But yeah, that's the breakdown there. All right, 20% all the way through. So this is a visual of how we go forward. We've got the, hey, I selected this character. I want to model them, right? So this would be the character that we, if this was one of our main ones, we would do a first read on that. We do our second read on that. But really, this is how the model progression goes. So this is a block out week 1. This is a really nice block out, really refined block out. They went more proof of concept block out, and we'll explain the differences there. Week 2, now everything is separate. Here it's all one piece. Here it is now separated in all the pieces, and the structures start becoming more refined. You see the face, soft. We don't have eyelids yet. It's a little soft. It's a little muted, but we've developed nice skull structure, good forms, and whatnot. Week 3 and 4, well, they modeled the hair. They refined wrinkles. So the hair is only done in week 4, right? All of everything else other than the hair would have been done at the end of week 3. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
What happened to the character that we should let him have hair or something?
What was it?
What happened to the character that we just doesn't have hair or something?
Ah, great question. We'll deal with that week 4 when that happens. We do have some contingencies built in to where you would grab, it says right in the assignment, week 4 assignments, if your character doesn't have hair, you'll use one of our supplied hair busts, right? So we have 4 heads, I think, that you can choose from, 2 cartoon, 2 human, and you build hair for them, right? So there are ways around some of the stuff. But it is something to think about. If you don't want to have to go down that route, don't pick something without hair, right? My motto when I was a student, right, I did very well. I was valedictorian. I got 3 course directors awards, worked for perfect attendance. I loved school. It was awesome. I knew I wanted to teach it. So I was like, man, I want to know all this stuff. And all the classes were exciting. I learned everything I could. So I always went into a class and I said, you know what? What's cheap and effective? How can I hit this cheaply but effectively? Learn what I need to learn, and then I can experiment and explore later on. So whatever the requirements were, I found things that met those right out of the gate and just worked that, right? So this is another thing you have to understand. And I know you guys spread your wings, you're in school, you're exploring, but when Full Sail's more of that real world style. When you go work at a company, you're not spreading anything other than, here's the artwork, make that, okay. And you make that artwork. You don't have room to grow. And you may hate the character. You're like, oh, I just hate this character. But it still has to be a really good asset at the end of the day. It's got to be what they're wanting, and you go from there. So sometimes you may choose something that dots the I's and crosses the T's, but you're not all that jazzed about, right? Maybe go the other route, and you're like, well, I don't know, I just really like this character, and I'm really excited to get into them. And then you understand that you have to now, once you go out of the norm, it's usually a little bit of more thinking or work that has to be done. But like I said, we'll get to that point, and we will definitely have ways of dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So And yes, I love questions. Sometimes they make it hard to get through the curriculum, but I'd rather ask those, and I try and really find a way to put those in. Yeah. Good question. So week one, we're really looking for just a rough, right? So like usually paddle hands. Okay. Yeah, mitten hands, paddle hands, something like that. Some of the build styles it's just easy to do fingers. There's really nothing going on there. And if you know, hey, let's say I picked 6 characters and I knew I wanted to take this one further, I might do a little bit more on them and then kind of skimp a little bit on the other ones. But if you just do a ball, that's incomplete, right? A lot of people they don't refine shape on everything, but we'll talk about that. We've got some things that we'll be talking about as far as where to go, what to do. I will be building that in. We lost these a little bit ago. We used to have focus lists of every week, what you're supposed to be focusing on within that assignment. And through the migration from the old episode to the new episode, they pulled from an inaccurate group, and we didn't notice that those things were gone until I think like 2 months ago. I was like, those focus lists aren't there anymore. But I do talk about them all the time in class. I tell people every beginning of every week, this is what we're going to be doing this week. So we did definitely cover the information. Okay, so we already had some questions, so we'll keep on moving. All right, so you say, I want to build something. That's usually the big thing. People say, I want to build something. And then what do? You jump right at you open Maya or ZBrush and start going to town, right? No, definitely not. No. This is a problem. And this, 3DF, yeah, you're just happy to make something. But at the end of the day, it's got to be a good asset. You have to slow down. Right? I do construction. I don't know. I like tearing things apart and tinkering with things. I just rebuilt the rear end of a quad, right? I never done that before. YouTube was my best friend. And you know what? I Googled a lot of stuff because I didn't know what I was doing. I had tools, but I didn't really know. So I had to approach it just like I would anything. What do we know? What do we have? What do we need? I realized I didn't have a bearing puller, a slide hammer. I had to go get one because I was pulling a lot of bearings out. I tried banging them out there and I broke a couple, but slide hammer made my life a lot easier. Okay. So same thing here. When you want to model something, you got to have paper or a Google Doc or something up, and you got to really start. And I'm talking about if you're just getting in there and you're like, hey, I'm just going to do a speed sculpt sketch, no big deal. If you're really sitting down, you're like, I'm going to model this guy on a motorcycle, right? Okay, well, what kind of motorcycle? You're going to design it. If you are going to design it, you need to know a little bit about motorcycles, so you have the right parts and pieces there. Right? What kind of outfit is he going to wear? How tall is the rider going to be? You're just going to randomly pick somebody, right? You pick somebody that doesn't fit on that motorcycle, it's not going to look right. Okay, I mean, anybody can ride any motorcycle they want, but we're looking for appeal. So we have to do some research, and if we don't know things, we got to figure those things out, and then we got to get them because we need them. All right, so these are questions that I've kind of grabbed onto as things that really help me figure out any assignments that I'm writing, projects I'm working on, construction, mechanical, drone stuff. If something's not working, I figure it out with these questions. And it does take a little bit of writing. So one of the things we look for as a modeler is, what am I building this for? Purpose dictates process 100% of the time. Okay? If you're going to be working for somebody here and you're doing a project, they're going to go, hey, model me a character. And you should be asking them questions like, what kind of maps are you going to be using? What's the final resolution? Do we have a final look? Do we know kind of what look we're targeting? Okay. What kind of pipelines are there? These are all questions we need to know. So the big one here is, what's it for? Am I doing it for games? Is it going to be a hero character, background character? Is it a third person? Is it a first person? Right? All this stuff changes your idea of what to do. Film, right? Different expectations for film than for, and I know that everybody says, oh, it's the same thing nowadays. It isn't. It really isn't. The creation, yes, we're going to sculpt and then resurface, and that build style, that build process might run the same. But your final output, are we going to run dynamic skin over a muscle system. You know what I mean? And not all game engines are doing it. I think does anybody even really, I know they're toying around with that nowadays with muscle systems and stuff in game, but that takes a lot of processing power, right? Are we going hyper reals and stylized? You know, there's going to be things that will give you direction, and we'll try that. I'll tell you right now, we're going to be shooting for nice cinematic midline character, you know, in a setup here. But are you going to do print? Yes.
So currently we have learned how to create a model, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to have a reading class.
Yep, next month.
There is another class, how to create muscles and things like that.
No. You just have the one rigging class.
Just the reading?
Mm-hmm. I think he gets into a little bit of muscle systems. He might actually, they've been scheduling us in the same room, so he might actually be coming in here, Mike Clavin, after that, you know, kind of thing. But when they shortened the program, they had to cut some of the classes, and the more advanced rigging-based ones were some of the ones that got cut. So, yeah. All right, so print. I'm into 3D printing, and I'll tell you for sure there are some things you need to think about if you're going to model for print. Okay, print usually doesn't care about topology. I just pulled a model from Thingiverse. It always does this when yep, awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. Actually, it's in ZBrush. I'll just show you ZBrush, right? And it's this Falcon. My son's super about rockets and spaceships and everything now. So we watched the Falcon 9 rocket go off, and then he wanted one. So I went on Thingiverse and I pulled this up, and wow, was it a mess, right? Lamina faces everywhere. It's almost like they duplicated the smoke, which is a bunch of spheres. It's like they duplicated that and then just left layer upon layer upon layer and then split all the vertices. Because when I went to go break it apart so I can merge and build on it, ZBrush was like, no, there's more than 1,000 pieces there. And I was like, what are you talking about? Maybe there's 40 or 50 spheres, but no, every face was its own separate piece, right? So I had to go and remodel it. And I also wanted to make it to where it was separate for him so he can take the rocket off of the stack. So a little bit of live boolean in there and kind of taking care of it that way. But I had to completely remodel, and you might be going, what do you mean you remodeled it? I took something, I shrunk wrap it onto it, and then dynameshed it, chopped it, live boolean some cylinders in there, and then live boolean those into the rocket, and we were good to go. But there's things I can get away with, very sloppy style modeling for a 3D print, because it's really about the outer structure. Right? We got to think about that stuff. And then I printed it, and I was like, wow, that's really small. It's like really thin pencils together, and the whole thing's about that big. I thought it was going to be a little bit more robust, but we're going to have to do some other things. So if I want to now print it larger, I have to cut it into more pieces so I can glue it together and think about that kind of process. So 3D printing, it's a huge thing. It is now going to be the future. Anybody go to the 3D printing talk over Hall of Fame? Yeah, so I was in there with a couple other guys, and we talked about 3D printing, and it's going to be a big industry. They need modelers that know how to model for 3D printing, because a lot of companies are going that route. So again, is it going to be rapid prototyping? Is it going to be a print that'll tell me what I need to do with it? Is it going to be for animation? Does this thing need to stand here, and then the arm goes over to the door and jiggles the door handle, right? If so, I need to make sure that this arm has enough topology in it to make that motion. Okay, so it might look more dense than, say, a model that isn't built for that. So there's things we have to think about, right? Another thing I like to do, and I push everybody to do, is look at stuff. Right? First car I ever modeled was a side project. I did I was like, what am I going to, I'm going to model a vehicle, because there's so many parts and pieces to a vehicle. This is really going to teach me about thinking through the modeling process. And I was like, what am I going to model? BMW, oh, that'd be cool. New Vet, that'd be cool. I own a Nissan pickup truck, 4x4. Not anymore. That thing is totally gone. But I had the truck, and I knew I can go look at it. So I went and I was like, I'm going to model that. But I went out and I went to cgcars.com. I went to CG Talk, which is part of the CG Society. I went to the Work in Progress forums, and I looked at cars, and I looked at wireframes, and I looked at tutorials. I think I read 3 or 4, and I really mean read them because we didn't have videos back in the day, right? Read like a 36-page tutorial on how to model a Subaru WRX. Is it WRX? I think that is a little rally one. But I read that, I read another one, and I looked at a bunch of wireframes, and I read a bunch of forums and people, and because I was learning, I'd not modeled a car before, and I didn't have the time to just go figuring it out. There we go. Oh, that didn't work. There goes a month. Let me try it again, right? I kind of wanted to have a good idea. That is cheap. Computer time is not cheap. Reading tutorials, cheap. I can do that on the toilet if I want to. Not back then, because I'd have to bring my whole computer in there. But now, it's mobile, okay? So research, look at people's work. Those are your competitors. Those are your targets. Those are where you need to be. Those are your benchmarks, okay? Think about how they did it. And I'm telling you, get on work in progress forums. Those are awesome because you can see somebody's process. You'll see somebody ask them a question, and then they'll post updates, right? It's awesome, right? Really, really cool. Think about what tools you have, right? What did I say about the quad rear end? I went and bought a bearing puller, but I was able to use sockets and a hammer to do some of the work. It took a little bit longer, but I got it done, okay? So tools are tools. You might watch a video and it's using some different tool. What is the tool doing? Right, that framing nailer is awesome. I've got that framing nailer, so it's a great framing nailer. But it's known for blowing out the top seal. It's not working. We don't throw it and say, that's it. We're not building this house anymore. My framing nailer's busted. You break out the old swing hammer and you start working with that, okay? The job of the framing nailer is it puts a nail through wood. Anything hard can put a nail through wood. Is it Kung Fu people that can smack a nail through wood with their hand? Is that what that is? What was that? It was in a movie where the guy's like, was it Karate Kid? No, there was one where the guy was like, and he puts the nail through the wood and his hands all bloody. Yeah.
I've seen a documentary on stuff like that.
Yeah. I stare a nail right into wood. I'll stare it down. It goes right in. Right? So there's a lot of things. Now, this is a really good picture, too, because it shows a foundation. If you screw up the first part of your process, it's going to build on itself, and you're going to have more and more problems. We actually just had a student, great student last month, and right at the end, symmetry stuff started breaking early on, and they didn't fix it. So then they get into week 4, and they're like, how do I'm having all this trouble with the quad draw tool and this, that, and the other thing, and they couldn't get it worked out. And it was like, you should have fixed the foundation first. You need to go back into ZBrush, straighten things out, then come forward at a much easier time. They were frustrated because they had to do that, but I said you could work around it and just kind of make it okay, but it's going to hurt the grade, right? Because when we finally look at it, you're going to go with that. So foundation's important. And you also have to think about foundation. Where's your model going? For this class, it's kind of easy, right? Your model's going where? To me, and I grade it. But if you plan on rigging it, if you plan on animating, think beyond, right? You may not be the rigger. You don't want to hand them something that's all jacked up, right? That's going to get you a bad reputation, and they're going to get frustrated. Unless they say, give me a busted model, I want to see if I can make it work. They might make a study out of it. But anybody work on a I've never done anything like this. I kind of want to. I think it'd be fun to just do go into work, pull some levers, and then leave and not have to worry about it ever again, you know, until you go in the next day and then pull some levers and go back, you know. But that guy screws something up 10 steps down the line, a bolt's not going to line up, and then you're going to be driving down the road, and your exhaust manifold's going to fall off, it's going to jam up in your wheel, you're going to flip over, hit a tree, explode, right? Because that guy did, because that guy didn't do his job right, okay? You got to be careful, know where your model's going in a production. Is anybody here working with a group of students that are trying to put together an animation or a game or anything like that? A little bit? Okay. Are you having like production style meetings where they're like, hey, we want you to model this character, this is what they're going to do, here's the storyboard? Okay, very cool. Nice, good job. Well, if you go into like hey, what happens is you'll get tied in with game design students, and they're like, I'm building a game. Can you model me some characters? And then you'll go, what poly count you want? And they'll go, we don't really know. We haven't got the engine built yet. Walk away. Walk away, because you know you're going to be reiterating constantly because they don't know what they want, right? You got to know, what do you want? Nail that down. I'll be more than happy to work on this. Give me a range, a poly range. Give me an end result, what you're looking for, and I can build that, okay? You got to, don't be timid and say, I'm going to sit here and whatever. You got to say, your success, your job requires information, and you got to get that information, okay? But yeah, that's cool that you guys work on some. You find it hard to squeeze it into your schoolwork? Okay, cool. Very nice. So you're figuring out a way to work it with classes, or nice, smart, cheap and effective. Good. All right, programs, right? These are part of tools. What programs do you have? We're going to be using ZBrush, Maya, and Photoshop. Certain things are required to be done a certain way. We're not trying to stomp on your creative freedom, but we want you to experience certain things a certain way so you can appreciate other things, right? You don't appreciate automatic until you've driven a stick. Right? How many of you drive sticks? I miss my stick, man. Total control, right? You want to downshift and pass somebody, you just do it. You want to lock up the rear end, slide around a corner? I don't drift. I don't drifter. I don't know. That's some crazy control how they do that. But I wish all cars would switch to stick shift. Maybe people would be more aware of what the hell's happening when they're driving, you know, or we'd have a lot more accidents. I mean, I'd tell you the first couple of years we'll probably have a lot more accidents because people will be grinding gears, they'll pop it into neutral, and they'll be like, oh, what's going on? But I wish we'd bring some of that back, right? Pipelines. This is another big thing. You got to be thinking about your pipelines. Kind of looks like that pipe's coming right out of his face, and he's got a big pipe arm. So I like that. Pipelines and workflows. What's your model gonna do? Where's it gonna go? And it's not just about beyond, right? We looked at that conveyor. You do something, then somebody else does something. But what do you do? What do you do to get from point A to point B? And if you're not really thinking about that stuff, I would slow down and give yourself a pipeline. Workflow is more of pipeline is it goes here, then it goes here, then it goes here. Workflow is how do you get your base built? What's your workflow? Are you using certain marking menus? Do you like certain tools? Do you subdivide, then project, subdivide, then project? Or do you subdivide, 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 then go down, project up, you know, what are you actually doing to get that process finished? Or you can look at them and go, pipeline workflow is kind of the same thing, right? No big deal. As far as what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing something like this modeling workflow, this modeling pipeline. We're going to go base mesh to sculpt to resurface. So that's kind of how we're going to go through, right? Week 1, base mesh. Week 2, we start getting into the sculpture. Week 3, we continue sculpture. Week 4, we look at the resurfacing and normal mapping and stuff like that. So let's start using some of that information. We know what programs we have. So how can we accomplish this? What might be the pipeline for the model or our workflow for the model? We might do our base mesh, our sculpt, and our resurface in those programs. We might do it this way. You're going to experience pretty much all of this other than the resurface in ZBrush, unless you want to. I think that was a nice addition. Last month, James introduced the Z-Sphere, the ZBrush resurfacing. And then we got base, sculpt, resurface, base, sculpt, resurface. We're not using anything other than the programs we're allowed to use. So if we knew that and someone was like, I'm going to do this, and that company goes, no, you're not. We own that stuff you're building. We don't have 3D code. You got to use something we've got. And you'll go, okay, well, I know how to do it, Maya. I know how to do it in ZBrush. No big deal. And if you're really badass, though, you go, I want 3D code. And they'll go, okay, we'll get it for you. You could technically do it all there, right? This is more so what you want to be comfortable with. Jumping back and forth. Know what needs to be done. Find a pathway to get it done. If it means going back and forth, do that. ZBrush, though, is slowly becoming a one-stop shop. I mean, it definitely can be a one-stop shop, right? But as an artist, if you can get something done in the same amount of time and hit a deadline, and you just like the tools here, you use those tools. But you have to understand, You might think that you can do it just as fast and get it done, but be realistic with yourself. Can you get it done, and fast? And again, this is just kind of a made up one, but some people do like the program jump. They go all over the place, okay? There might be a company that has all these specific proprietary softwares and tools built, and you feel like you're going in and out of different things to get something finished, okay? Helpful hints for you this month. Things to start thinking about. Human form, okay? I don't care if you're doing cartoons, creatures, or whatever. Really start thinking about human form. Not, I know what a thumb looks like. Do you? Do you really? Right? You have a general idea. You can look at a thumb and your brain knows enough information to tell you if it looks right or not. But making a thumb, oh, yeah, I hate it. It's probably one of my least favorite parts of the human body is the thumb, trying to model the thumb. It just bothers me, right? Right? So you got to start really looking. There's things we take for granted. And you start modeling it and you go, I really didn't understand that form correctly. Study anatomy, right? Human form and anatomy kind of go hand in hand. You want to be a rigger, you need to understand anatomy and how it works. You want to be a modeler and you want to start getting into design and creature creation, or you just want your models to look better. You have to understand overlapping of anatomy. You have to understand what the muscles are doing. So if you have a character, right? Anybody know the difference, the real main difference between a football player and a wrestler? Talking high school wrestling, not off the top rope wrestler. You could see it if you've ever really looked at a good wrestler in high school and you look at a football player. What's the main difference is their motion, right? A wrestler is constantly pulling in, right? They're always, their legs are going to be, they're lower and they're going to be pulling you in all the time. So they're going to really have strong lats, bicep, right? Where a football player is pushing a lot, they're going to have pec, traps, right? Legs are going to develop a little bit different. Look at a swimmer. Longer torsos usually help swimmers out. They have longer lat muscle development, okay? Sprinter, their legs will develop differently. So understanding what muscles do what, and you start developing a character, you can really get into, they do this on a regular basis. This muscle is going to be a little bit more developed than that muscle. Or this one's going to appear a little bit longer, right? Sprinters usually tighter muscle, long distance runners usually longer. They start really working those fibers differently. So that's going to be a lot of stuff you got to think about. If you don't know anatomy, you're just kind of guessing, and then you go, hey, look at my swimmer I made, and it looks like a boxer. It just doesn't look like a swimmer because it just doesn't work, right? Your anatomy's correct, but doesn't fit the character, okay? Observe and study surface flow. Man, you can see here, look at this right here. Right? If this was a real fender, what do you notice about that shape? Is that flat? No. Kind of curves in a little bit, right? Curves in a little bit. You can see through the transition of the highlights what's happening, okay? And if you can't see that kind of stuff, you got to look at surfaces more. You got to look at highlights and shadows. There'll be a lot of times somebody says, hey, can you look at my model? And I'll take the model and just start rotating it around. I'm letting the light move over the surface so I can get a good feel and read on the curvature. Right? And kind of see how are these organic structures working with it? How are the curves working with each other? Does it feel okay from different angles? Right? I'm looking at the surface. Not really, yes, we're paying attention to what we know to be underneath the surface, right? But again, we're just kind of looking at it. And when I want to model, I want to look at a pair of pants and be able to tell you if that is something bulging out, sinking in, is it rolling, is it hanging, is it gravity, right? Looking at a car, where do those body lines go, right? Is this one overlapping that one? Is that one behind this one, in front of that one? It all comes through your eyes and what you're observing. Seek the critique. Oh, man. How many critiques? What kind of critique did I give last month? I think I did 2 of these. There's a video. There's a video. I think there's another video up here. Right? Now, this is what's kind of funny. This is out of, when did I do this one? Do you remember when I did that one? Like 3 or 4 months ago. So within, let's say this one happened, we'll go 3 months. Not counting, last month is still, we're talking 3 months. Yeah, well, I probably do have the creation date on there. This one was January, February. Okay, so it wasn't that far back. Okay. But how many students are in here?
Oh.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's about average. We're going in between 12, 19. Okay. So out of that, plus we got a full house, 24 online. Last month we had 22, and in January it was roughly about the same. And I've got 2, 3 video critiques. 2 are for the same student. That makes me sad. I mean, it's great for me because I can do other stuff at my desk instead of critiquing. But I notice a lot of stuff when it comes to grading, and I'm just like, what's going on there? What's going on here? What's going on there? I know I said this in class. Had they gotten a critique or shown me their stuff, I could have answered that. James can do only so much. I can only do so much. And your friends are great. Your peers are great. But, and they do help alleviate. But one, they want to be your friends. So are they going to be brutally honest with you? And you know, you're like, oh no, my friends will do that. If they're like, dude, man, you got to do this over. And, I'm never going to show you my stuff because every time you tell me to show you my stuff, you tell me to do it over. Well, then maybe you need to rethink what you're doing. But, you know, family members aren't that helpful because they just love what you do. You know, you got to get out there. I would like to do more critiquing. Do I have time to critique everybody and do videos for everybody? No way. No way is that going to happen. I'm just sitting at my desk all day long. But I would like more than 3 or 4. And I'm not talking about come rush my desk at the end of the class and go, hey, can you take a look at this real quick? Because I'm going to give you a real quick look at it, if I even can look at it, because if another class comes, we got to go. Right? I really don't like doing that. I'd rather have you come to my desk. How many meetings did I have last month?
Yes.
But that was 2. I think I met with him twice. So 1 student all month, met with him twice. I had some emails, but it was more like, hey, I need an extension. All right, I turned in this extension. Is this prop okay? You know, kind of basic question. And I was like, man, why aren't people showing me their stuff? Right? Yeah.
And it's not because Stephen was a bad student, quite the opposite. He was a really good student. And the purpose for that was because he was seeing Marcus all the time. He was getting that instant feedback on his work and critiques that otherwise, you know, we can't really assist you, especially during lecture time. Marcus is getting lectured. He can't really, except unless it's built in the lecture, he can't really go over your stuff in detail. Sitting at his desk, using that time, you know, open hours and stuff like that, he could spend a good hour just telling you what you could improve on, how to improve it, and just go into more detail about things that you're doing and where it should go.
Again, I don't have bandwidth to do a whole bunch, but I would like to be doing more on a regular basis. And I can only do that if you're actually giving me your stuff to look at. Another thing we could possibly do, I've got, well, one, we set up a Google Hangout, a CDC specific Google Hangout. So if you can't make it to my desk, no big deal. We might be able to go Google Hangout. Now, if you're like, the only time I'm free is at 7:37 on a Sunday night, I'm going to say, well, sorry. Okay. But during the day, or, you know, send me files. What's really cool also, if you send me files, that's one thing I wanted to do this month, was to have you guys submit actual files to the dailies. We might be able to pivot on that in week 2, because I'd like to use that stuff, right? A lot of the lecture can be driven through critiques, right? I can tell you, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but maybe I can show you how to fix it. I'm not going to give it to you, but I can show you, and then you go, oh, okay, now I can see the difference before and after. Okay, so if you want, send me files. If you're going to start emailing, Dropbox link, Google Drive link's probably the best way to go, because our emails only accept up to 10 megs, I think. That's what it is. I know it's kind of low for today's day and age, but that's what it is. So, but a Google link or Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, all that stuff usually comes out pretty good. So you got to get your critique, okay? And I don't care if it's finished or not finished. You can tell me what you want me to look at and what you don't want me to look at, because you know it's not done. That's fine. That works out too. Study wireframes. We're going to be building wireframes. You know, again, coming from the day before sculpture, I built a lot of stuff. James has built a lot of stuff, but you guys haven't, so you won't really have that build knowledge. So you have to start looking at wireframes, okay? See what's out there and really kind of looking at those 4 humans. Train your eyes to see all the stuff above, getting critiques, giving critiques, good critiques, getting critiques, observing all that. you're going to see better, right? Most of us in here would agree that a standard human skull, the forehead is not as wide as the cranium part of the skull. Would we agree? Then why do people model it opposite? They just don't see it. Here's why. You're just happy to be, you're learning software. You're on a crazy schedule. You're learning a whole bunch of stuff. You've been looking at it for days. Your brain starts to lie to you. Your brain goes, looks good to me. Even though I know better, looks good to me, right? You're just not seeing it, okay? Now, there are ways of making sure you don't make those mistakes by double checking and measuring, really just understanding anatomy and saying, okay, my eyes see it this way, but I know better because I know anatomy it's not that way, right? Skull structure usually is not shaped that way. So, your eyes will develop, right? But you got to work on it. You got to get that going. Same thing with animators, or even riggers. They're like, that looks like it's moving okay. And then 6 months down the road, you look at it again, you're like, oh, what was I thinking, right? Your eyes just weren't seeing it. Okay, any questions so far? Let's get to it. Let's jump on FSO. I'll do that since I'm already around here. And going to kind of talk to you about some stuff. Kind of go my trainings. We'll go on there, section term. Okay. See, I'm almost done, so I don't think you guys can see those anyway. Okay, so FSO, it's a big, long list of stuff. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's there and why it's important. And then we'll look at the first reads assignment, and then we'll look at the getting into, what's the other thing? The blockouts, the big part of the week, right? Okay, so this general course information, please read all of them. I know it's a lot, right? It's like when you get a new TV, you should be reading because you can really damage these new TVs. They do quite a bit. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in here. Welcome letter. Hey, what's going on? Here's your instructor contact. And then this is what we expect from you. Super quick read. Syllabus. We got a lot of that information already built into the assignment, so you maybe can skip that unless you need it. Academic integrity for the students. Just don't cheat. Pretty simple, right? Instructor contact information. It'll have, ways of getting in touch with myself. Email is the best way. Okay, I think we got to get you on there. I don't know. I can't remember if I added you in there or not. I don't know. We'll talk about it. I never know, I'll put you in there and then they'll be like, oh, sorry, he's going to PRM. And I'll be like, okay, cool. This one here is a big one, right? And every time you read one of these, it actually says, check this as complete. I've read and understand. Okay, once you check that, you can't BS your way out of why you didn't use the correct subject line format for your emails. So you can't get upset with me if I don't respond, because it literally says in there that I will not respond to your emails if you don't use the proper subject line header. Okay. Contact schedule. This one is a good one. So if we go into there, the main thing is just gaining access to the CDC Google Hangout. So you have the modeling department Google Hangout, and there's another one there. You go to the open lab. So if you were like, hey, Marcus can't ever meet with me in the evening, we have online support that runs. There are open labs that can be found here. Also, I would recommend joining the FS Modeling Department Facebook page. You got links to contact schedules there for extra support and help. But this one here, right? You click on it. You can go to more. Sometimes it works if you go more details. You can actually join the Hangout. But is there anybody in here who doesn't have a Google account? Okay, that's like saying, is anybody not breathing air right now? I think it works out there. Right, so you copy to your calendar, then you can go right in there. It may ask you to add conferencing, and you'll pick Google Hangout, and you just go right in there. You guys can use this. I put it on here because sometimes the FS Modeling Department Google Hangouts are filled with, sometimes you get animators in there, sometimes you got people that are just doing other stuff, and you might want to work with each other in your own space, okay? You can use that whenever you want. And I've used it a couple times for meetings. I've said, hey, you know what? Our schedules can't really line up, but I'm going to be at home with the kids or something. Let me jump on the Google Hangout. We can meet. Okay, so that is one of the things you can do there, and it's a lot of fun. So I think last month, Stephen and I can never remember her name were using it on their own. Alyssa? Yeah. Yeah, they were using it together outside of the class, and they both did amazingly well throughout the entire month. So, you know, it just helps out, a way to connect, right? So you got that. Professionalism, it's talking about what it takes to be professional. Participation, this explains the dailies and stuff like that. Late policy, please make sure you check that out. And important announcements, this will kind of give you some links to other things, or kind of, you know, some other things that are important, and we had to announce them. So a lot of stuff in there. Go to training information. So we got the go to training link, and then afterwards, this is where the archive links will go. So if you're like, hey, I can't remember what he said in that one part of the lecture, you can go in here and check those out. Dailies, here they are. So at the end of every day, I would recommend doing it at the end of the lab and not waiting, because that's usually when people forget and they're like, oh man, I forgot. No, I'll get an email at like 12:30. Hey, here's my thing, and I'll just be like, sorry, you know, assignment's closed. There's dailies, there's 10 of them. We have 10 labs, 10 dailies. Week 1, this is going to be really where your main focus is going to be. So you can see here we've got the modeling warm-up. I want to explain to you about integrateds. Don't spend more than the allotted time to do them. Okay? I would submit them, even though they haven't given us the ability to add timed deadlines other than daily. Like, so if I post it for today, it literally gives you till 11:59 to submit. But we have a scheduled section of time from 3 to 5 is when the lab time would, or when that would be. Just submit it then. Do it, work on it, finished or not finished, submit it. Now, if you go in there and you spend realistically probably an hour and a half worth of time, and you only get one or half of one build done, or I can tell that you didn't spend time in it, and I'll verify with James, I'm not going to give you credit for that integrated, which would then hurt participation and professionalism, because you weren't really there. Okay, so please make sure that you are doing those. Now, online is different. Yours are conducted. I'm going to talk to them like I would be you in front of me. Yours is a little different online, so you can actually, you know, you submit those when yours are supposed to be submitted. Those are heavily ranked into the participation grade for online, and here it's a little bit different on campus. But do them, okay? And believe me, if you get in and you sit down and you set up and you start working, you should be able to model, even with watching the videos and learning some of those, you should be able to get those done. Definitely, all 3 of them. Now, if you're going in, you're noodling them, and you're nickel and diming, and I'll make sure this, just get it done. Get it, 3 builds done. This is your window into Dynamesh and Z-spheres. Okay, so this is your warm-up. You do that. First reads, and then we have an integrated torso anatomy. Nope. Sometimes you'll notice, like you see here, integrated 28. We have 3 days, 26th. We have Friday, right? Yeah, this one's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move that to Friday as well. So when you see something that's like this, February 28th to the 2nd, that means that it's going to run in 2 labs. Okay, so the modeling warm-up, first day, warm-up, then start your builds. When you see this one, okay, it is going to be due there. You're going to do 2 days worth of speed sculpts and studying that anatomy. The only difference to this is if James decides that, hey, everyone's doing pretty good, I want to do something fun, we can then throw in some sort of another exercise, but yeah, I'll leave that up to James in the lab, you know, kind of deal. But that's what that means. Sometimes I go, what? I don't know, 2 days. So just know 28th, you would go in there on that Wednesday, you would do the torso, study, and then we possibly might do it again on Friday or possibly something else, but it would count towards that one. Yes. Yes.
So 2 different models. It's not, you're not working at the same model.
No. So usually what we would do in a situation like that, if it is an anatomy study, one might be, you know, again, I'll leave this up to James. He might surprise you with some stuff. He might say, hey, just give me a general écrochet study of a torso. right? So that's where you're just focused on muscle structure. Then the next one might be, give me a planar study, right, of a torso. Right? And the next one might be, hey, do a heavier set torso, right? It'll be, I'd probably do that later, you know, once you get the muscles down, you know. But yeah, you would be doing a series of speed sculpts, or maybe we could do one and then refine it, right? Here's what's wrong with it. In the next class, fix it, you know, kind of deal. But you know, at that point, in the beginning stages, you're learning how to use the software, so it is kind of better to just redo, kind of get into doing the process more and more. So yeah, those will change, but again, James will talk about that when you guys are in the labs. And then we have the blockouts, and I want you to notice that everything is delivered on a deliverable. So this is all these submission stuff and all of these assignments, right? So if we go into the first read assignment, it'll say, please see the week 1 deliverables for further information on submission. Do not submit to these unless it says submit to this. Like the integrated, you would submit to those, but all your main competencies will be submitted in the weekly submission. Okay, everything goes together. All right, so something new if you've taken the class before or if you're used to other formats. Somewhere around here you would see reading and resources, right, where all the video content would be. I moved those all the way down to the bottom on every assignment, and it says see reading and resources section below. So you would go down to the bottom, and that's where we have all our video links and whatnot. The reason I did that is some of these have a ton of, you know, if it's something that's dealing with Z-spheres, Dynamesh, Maya, there might be 5 or 6 videos per topic. So there might be 20 videos staring at the face. You got to do a lot of scrolling before you get into the strategy and the example images and stuff like that. So we're going to try it out, put them at the bottom, and just see how that works out. But that's where those are. Evaluation, people, something, what are you really looking for? You know, and this can combine with, I will be adding a things to focus on. That'll probably go up here under the helpful skills. Right up here somewhere, there'll be focus areas, things to focus on, you know, something like that up there. Okay, this is an example of the first read, so we'll kind of dive right into this. First thing you're going to do, and I think it even says in the strategy, select your 6 characters. Okay, characters to choose from, right there. Right now, there are some other things. I encourage you to read the assignment up at the top. If you're like, well, what kind of characters can we pick? Well, there is a folder. I'm not going to tell you that these are all amazingly drawn characters. Some of these are kind of poop, right? One of my first jobs, I was handed a napkin with a Sharpie, a 3/4 Sharpie drawing of Brandon, the angel baby, who was going on an angel baby summer cruise. And they said, make this. We're going to show it to Burger King to see if we can get some toys made. And I was like, okay, I'll make that. I had to make it. It had to look like that, not crappy, like sketchy, but it had to have that feel, that read, and that's what I had. Okay, you might have to do some alteration to make your references look better and work better. I'm not talking about, well, they should have a horn and some wings. I'm saying if they're like this, Photoshop, again, we are gods. We could take the image and go like this. Isn't that crazy, right? We can straighten it up. We don't have to go, oh man, it's drawn like this, it's crazy. I can fix things. Yes?
Are we allowed to let you know?
Not going to answer that.
What?
Not going to answer that because it is different between online and campus. I don't want feelings getting hurt. So read the assignment, right? Okay, yes. Again, it is a different environment and we have stipulations in there. I will say, no matter what, none of these characters, you're not going to find Batman in there, right? We're not going to find the Hulk because it wouldn't be allowed anyway, right? Intellectual property we want to stay away from. Okay, so you pick your characters. I mean, it tells you right there. Select your characters. Then select 2 of those 6 characters. Take notes. I always say take notes. Love notes. Old school thing. View all examples so you kind of understand what you need to do. So you'd go down there and you'd look at some examples. I've got some other examples. And there's, oh, what do you know? There's 2 examples right there. And then you go through. You open Photoshop. So we've built in kind of a what should you be doing. We don't have to lecture. We should just stop. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about. But so what you're going to do, if this were an example, these are the two characters I picked, right? You don't get to pick this one, though. He's not in the folder. But this would be an example. I want to explain his reference versus this guy's reference. This guy has a front, side, and back. He's a regular. He's one that you can pick. He's a regular character sheet. But we also have what we would call challenge characters. Now, there's nothing saying that this guy is more challenging to model than this guy. This guy's actually more difficult, I would think. But what makes this a challenge is he's not an A pose or T pose. Okay, so that's the only image we have. We don't have front, side, and back. I mean, I'm gonna lie, we do. But for the example, you've got characters that are like, yeah, we've got them in there. They're called challenge characters because you can't see the back of them. You don't know what's on their back. You don't know what's on their side. All you have is that pose. So they are challenging because you have more things to think about. You've got to double check proportion, measurements, everything to make sure that, because you're not going to model them like this. There is no modeling in pose. You're going to model an A pose or T pose. Exception to this rule. For this guy, to make sure he was modeled correctly, I modeled following his one side, and his hand is in his pocket. He's got his thumb in his pocket. Okay, so I modeled him that way. I didn't put his thumb in his pocket. I put his thumb outside. And then I grabbed his arm and I went, and I put him into A pose. So you might model two pose, but at the end of the day, for submission, they will all be in A pose or T pose. Okay? Is that really easy to make them A pose or T pose? No, not really. Not really, unless you kind of know what you're doing or if you pre-think it in your modeling process. But models that are in pose and whatnot will be deemed incomplete because they need to be A pose or T pose. His legs are fine because they are A pose, and T pose will be roughly the same, right? But as far as the first read goes, so I picked my 6 characters and I said, you know what? I'm having a hankering to do these two. I want to take these two to the end. I really like them. I think they're going to be challenging. These are 2 challenging characters to begin with if you've not modeled characters before. If you're somebody who's like, I don't know about all this stuff, I don't really know ZBrush all that well, maybe pick one challenging one and one more simplistic, right? Think about it. Don't just go, hey, he's cool, and go from there. Okay, so the first thing I want to do after selecting my characters is I want to look at them, pick my 2 for this assignment. You're going to be modeling them, and I would tell you it's best to do this assignment with characters you want to model, and then next week's assignment with the same ones, and continue modeling those. Okay, because there's a lot of benefit to doing this type of an exercise on an asset. So what we're looking for here, and it'll tell you right at the top, for this assignment, you're to create 2 first read images in Photoshop, which will break down all the major primary forms, parts, and silhouettes that make up 2 of your selected characters. Okay? So what we're doing is we're doing a color block, an itemized list. Okay? We're saying, all right, what are the main shapes and forms here? What are the main silhouettes? Naturally, this will be done in Photoshop. It'll be done using, right, let's see, guideline requirements, okay? Must use Photoshop, pen tool, stroke layers, stroke paths, layers, and fill, okay? The only difference here, I'll tell you right now, if you're going to use a pen tool, you don't have to stroke the path layer if you use shape, which I'll talk about in a second, because the pen tool can go either path or it can go shape. And for this assignment, I do actually prefer shape, okay, as you're going through. But what we don't want to do is fill bucket or anything like that to get that going. Now, when it says fill, this is not talking about fill bucket. This is talking about filling the actual path layer. You can tell it to have a stroke or a fill and stuff like that, okay? And it says right there, if you're just using the fill bucket, you'll get a 0. So you got all that right there, and you will produce images that look like this. On simple characters, sometimes people will say, I'm going to do this real cheap, and I'm going to grab a character that's wearing one big giant jumpsuit. And they just trace around the jumpsuit, and they say, okay, cool, I'm done. But the jumpsuit has color blocking in it. Identify the color blocking, right? don't make somebody's heart break when they go, man, I did all this work and I get the same grade as it. Because it's not going to be. I don't know if you've ever seen or heard the idea of taking assets and saying, well, you can do that asset, but it's only going to get you a C. That's the highest possible rating because that's a C grade asset. You ever heard about that? Education kind of was pushing towards, there's a kind of gamification of education. And then there was like in anybody ski, you can go down the bunny slope or the triple black diamond, right? Or you can make an accident, think you're going down the bunny slope, go the wrong way, and then you next thing you know, you're killing yourself, right? You're going down. So it's the same kind of thing, right? You pick the bunny slope, yeah, you're gonna have a good time, but it's the bunny slope, right? So that might be a C level project. So if you do a C level amount of work, I'm probably gonna cap it like that, okay? But there are ways of bringing complexity to an asset to make it worthwhile. So if you do have a character that's got color blocking and they're kind of more on the simplistic scale, break down the outfit more. Because chances are you're going to model it that way. You're not going to model it as just one piece. You're going to break those panels up. So it's nice to identify them. Okay. It does say here, labeling of parts is optional. You do not have to label them unless you want to create yourself a nice list of the things. Sometimes that helps. Okay. So let's take a look at this assignment being done. I think I grabbed some other ones too. Yeah, this one was really nice, and I grabbed a couple more. That one was really nicely done. This is one of the characters that is, if we were to go off the base level of the assignment, you could argue, right, that the little Shaw and the hood are one piece, so why would I separate them into separate pieces? Why would I identify them as separate pieces? It brings complexity to the outfit, and there might be validity to modeling the hood separate from the Shaw, okay? Even though it might be the same piece. Same thing here. A lot of people on this character, they mistake this panel in the front as being connected to this shirt underneath. So what I'll see is this will be blocked out, and they'll just kind of color block this here. So this is also forcing you to examine your actual image, to zoom in on it and make sure that you're identifying the parts and pieces that you're going to need to model. But what a bad way, or a little bit more on the more simplistic way of identifying this one would be go down and just identify the shape. But this student went a little bit further and said, well, let me do the edging. And I'll tell you what, most people that do it this way actually model the edging on the outfit. People that don't and they simplify too much, they usually don't model that edging because they just kind of gloss over it. Okay? So the further you push yourself, usually the more you're going to push yourself on the model. Even the shoes, they had a little cuff on the shoes. They decided to separate that. Right? They broke apart the different layers of the actual body. So that's a nice way of doing a simple model. You know, pushing it a little bit more. Okay, and again, this one's really nice. So let's take a look at it in Photoshop. Bing, maybe, yeah, there we go. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to grab your reference image. I would crop it, crop out the front view. Or if it's a case like a challenge character, you would go in and crop out whatever, just kind of get rid of the excess space, right? Always think about efficiency. I want to kind of maximize viewing. Okay, so I don't want to have, here's a little character, but it was in this big image, and now I'm kind of wasting space. So crop that out. Then I would go to, and this is just my workflow or how I would do it, or how I did this one. Crop it out. Get rid of unnecessary stuff. Probably you've got a little bit of headroom there. I could have gotten rid of that. Then I go to image and I go canvas size, and whatever your new cropped out width is, double it. And then once you double it, okay, duplicate your layer, add a new layer, duplicate your layer via copy, whatever. Duplicate this and slide it over to the other side. So that way they're side by side. Okay. Once you have that, you click on a layer and it's all done. No. right? Now you're going to go through a series of creating these shapes. And, oh, Photoshop, always aggravating. I just kind of want to run through how much stuff is here. Now, a lot of this is text. So this is one of the reasons people usually don't do the labeling. It adds a lot. But starting here at the shoe and going up to there, that's all the shapes. See his hat? There's his face. Now, I'm going to zoom in on this and let me get rid of, I think I've got that. Group 1. That's that. That's, I think I've got labeling done layer. Either I'll just zoom in on. We can look through it. Okay, but I want you to pay attention to how I'm utilizing the layering process to make my life a little easier. Right? One of the problems that people go into this and they're doing their study is they try and trace around every one of the parts instead of utilizing layering. Right? So his hair, instead of going and trying to go all around the hair, I put the hair in there very rough, and then I just drop the face shape on top of it. So really now I'm only focused on one shape 100%, and the other one, you know, I get free information. You'll notice the same thing with the shirt. I kind of roughly went around the shirt, and then his chin finishes off the look. And you'll notice that, actually this one I think I was like not having a good time there. But you can see the jacket. Look at the jacket. Just cut right across. Not really trying to get anything, right? As soon as I get past the shoulder, and then we layer stuff on top, okay? And it's that kind of work that's being done all the way through, right? Even paying attention. I think a lot of times people don't zoom in when they're doing this. I mean, I get close, zoom in, work the shapes, okay? And it might sound tedious, and it is. To do a good job, anything is tedious to do a good job. Okay? It takes time. So what we're doing there is we're just breaking those down. So if you're not quite sure, I'll do a real quick demo on how to use these tools and how I would go about that. Okay. I don't know what's on that layer. That's the back there. Let's do another layer on there. Drop that on top. And we'll do one more layer. Actually, no, we'll just go with that. So one of the things that helps identify is throwing in a white layer, just kind of a nice solid color. That way you can better see what's going on as you're working through your model. Where did I just drop that? I put that in names, didn't I? Go up there. Go up there. There we go. Right? And this isn't how you're going to submit it. You're going to submit it with the background and everything like that. But now we'll go over here, pen tool. Let me clear my guides. I'm going to go pen tool. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to make sure shape is on. I'm going to turn fill on. I like to pick a color that's close to whatever it is that I'm tracing, but let's just learn how to use the tool first. So I would always recommend getting a feel for the tool. If, let's say you know how to use it, but you're a little rusty, I would still do this. I draw some shapes and just kind of have some fun with it. Okay. So the way this tool works with shape mode is one, it automatically generates a layer for you, which is pretty neat. So even if I drew another one, you see how I'm generating layers. And doing this in the path, you have to actually put a path layer there so you can maintain that path layer. So that's why I kind of like this way a little bit better. Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm clicking and I'm getting very linear or faceted lines. If you click, hold, and drag, you start getting spline tangents. So now we can start adjusting. So my animators, there you go, animation curves. So you can make some kind of connection and maybe like it a little bit more. All right, if I want to add a point, just click on it. You'll see that it changes. It's very hard to see, but you'll see a plus and a minus. So if I want to get rid of one, I hover and click on it. If I want to add one, I hover on the path and click on it. I'll get one. Two important hotkeys, Command and Alt and Option. I've been hearing that the newer machines don't have Option written on the key or don't have Alt written on the key on some of them. No, Adam was telling me about that. He mentioned Alt or Option. It's one or the other. And they'd be like, what key are you talking about? And he looked and theirs didn't have it. So let's talk about Command first. Command is going to activate selection. And what's nice about that is I can grab everything, or I can select just a point, and I'm holding Command down, and I can move it. If I want to adjust tangency, I can add more weight to a tangent side, or I can rotate it. Okay. If you hold Alt and Command, you can actually break a tangent. So you can do a very sharp transition from an arc, sharp transition to an arc. Okay. If you don't like the tangency, you moved it around, whatever, it's just not working for you, you want more of a hard faceted tangent, hold Alt or Option, and you'll see we get a slightly different, it looks like greater than, right, or less than sign. If you click, it's going to return it to a linear. If you click and drag, you're going to bring back a spline. So I can make this all linear again just by holding Alt, Option, right, and clicking on them. If I want to go ahead and drag it out. And be careful with the direction. This gets a lot of people as they'll do that, and it'll kind of cave on itself. If you want to change it, you can either just redraw and reconvert that point or switch to Command, and you should be able to flip that around. But think about it. In Maya, how many points does it take? When you hit the 3 key, you go from 1 to 3 and you want an arc. How many points do you usually put per arc to really get the arc itself and then some control? 3. So every corner you have 3, right? Usually bevel or something, unless you're going to leave it in 1. But an arc takes, and this comes also from old NURBS days, you need 3 points to actually create the arc. You got the start of the arc, the end of the arc, and the arc itself. So when you're thinking about where do I put these points, think that way. Hey, here's an arc. I need a point. Each one of these does give you 1, 2, 3. I want a tighter. I want to compress the arc. I just bring them close together just like I would in Maya. I want a little bit wider, a little bit more roll. I can pull the arc out. Okay. So now those are there. They're super fun. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And I'm going to hide all the finished stuff. And I'm going to say, okay, cool. I'm getting ready to do his shirt. We'll do this shirt here. All right. Okay. All right. So it's going to be hard to see. There's going to be a little bit of stuff I've got to figure out. So first, let's just go ahead and block that. And I want to add one right in there just to make sure. And I'm going to convert that to an arc. Okay. Now, why did I go up underneath the jacket? Because the jacket will be a shape sitting on top of it. So I will get that natural transition. But I'm going to go in here. I'm going to drop my opacity down. And I start adjusting. Right? And I go through and I refine the shape as much as I need to where it fits. And there's going to be a lot of looking at it, undoing, looking at it. I would tell everybody the first priority is get the assignment done. Schedule yourself 2 hours. Let me get all my shapes identified. Then 1 more hour, go through and refine all your shapes, right? Because if you're kind of nickel and dime everything as you go through, you're never going to get finished, and then you're going to have incomplete work, and that's going to really just kind of destroy the grade. So that would be my approach as I go through it. Okay. So now we're going to go in here. We're going to make another shape. So we got that done. Let's go ahead and start working on the jacket. Now I'm not going to do the whole jacket, right? Disclaimer. I'm going to actually just kind of I'm just going to throw in some points here. But you know that you would do more than what I'm doing here. I just want to show you how I'm using the layering. I'm going to change my fill to, was that jacket kind of greenish color? Ooh, not that green. Go down, right? You can color pick whatever you need to do. Okay, and then I'm going to hide this one. And I'm going to run the opacity down on that. Okay, and I'm way off target, but that's okay. And yes, you can marquee select and grab larger sections. I got confused with the pouch here. Okay, so this one needs to be converted. Okay, so let's say I go through and I make sure that looks all good. And you can see that shirt there, the shape goes up underneath, but I didn't try and make my life harder, right? And then I go through and I zoom in on your submissions and I look at them. Okay, I don't just kind of go, hey, it looks pretty good. What happens a lot of times is people leave their lines faceted. So everything's linear and they try and compensate with having more lines, so I can't see the faceting. Usually I see the faceting, and you might get a good identification grade. This is graded in 2 parts, identification and accuracy. So you might have identified a lot of stuff, and that's great, but the accuracy is bad, right? So they're both worth 50%. Cool, and you go through the whole character, and you have a good time, right? You put on some bad movie in the background, and you sit down for 4 hours, and you bang one of these out, and you go and do your other one. Questions? Seems pretty straightforward. Any questions about the tool usage or anything like that? We've got to shape. Yeah, I like using shape versus path for this one. I like using path for second reads, right, versus shape for second reads. But for the first reads, I like the shape. I think it works better. A little bit easier to control. Yes? This is the pen tool, and I make sure that it's on shape. Now, some people have asked me, can I use Illustrator? I'd be fine with using Illustrator because, I mean, it's the same. We're using Illustrator functionality, so I'd be okay with that as well. But what I don't want to see is check out what I've got, and I look at it, and it just, what they do is they paint bucket fill, and it just doesn't work. Right? There was another one that was like their way, my way. I can't remember where that is. I think it's in there. Okay, so this was a critique that was asked. Somebody said, hey, how are my shapes looking? And I knew what they were doing. They were using this tool, and they couldn't figure out why, I'm using my tool, and here I am hitting them on accuracy. They were doing fill bucket. So they were making a selection with the pen tool. They were tracing around doing a selection, and they were just paint bucket filling. And usually what happens is it gets a very pixelated edge. And doing it that way, you have zero control unless you go back and you adjust your shape again and whatnot, or draw a new one. So these should be very crisp. And I can always tell when someone takes a pen and they just take the brush and go, and they try and brush it in, or they try and do the magic wand select and paint bucket fill. It just always looks terrible. So this is proven. It does work. You can see simplified shape, really trying to hold a lot of those details there. Okay. So the Maya build, I know everybody here knows how to use Maya. So we'll start with that one. So if you notice, we're going to switch gears and go into talking about getting started in the blockouts. Okay, so your main goal for today would be getting in there, doing the modeling warm-up, hitting up those 3 cactuses, learning that stuff, and then going through selecting your characters that you want to model this month, getting started on any type of cleanup for your reference images, and then getting into your first reads. Okay. If you want a breather in between your first reads, I would probably start on the Maya build unless you're proficient with ZBrush. Usually that's where people start. You are required to do 1 Z-sphere full build for blockouts, right? This is only for week 1. You have to do 1 Z-sphere full build. You have to do 1 Dynamesh full build, and you have to do 1 Maya full build for blockouts. The other 3 can be hybrids or build of your choice. I would strongly recommend, if you do not like ZBrush, work with ZBrush more than Maya, okay? Because week 2, we transition heavily into ZBrush, and if you did build a bunch of stuff in Maya, you're going to be bringing them into ZBrush, okay? Has everybody now switched to 2018? Sorry, 4R8, not 2018, I'm thinking Maya. 4R8 ZBrush. Yes. I like the update. How? You should be able to go right up into Z plugins. You'll see Z Updater, I believe is what it's called. You have to have all of your original information. So if you don't have that stuff, I would stay right where you're at. Right? So if you've got all that, then you should be good. The reason I bring this up is if you have switched to 4R8, Z-spheres work a little bit differently, and Dynamesh works a little bit differently. 99% of it is the same for Dynamesh, other than subprojection, which you won't be dealing with that until you're actually Dynameshing an actual piece of geometry or a model that is not Dynamesh. But your Z-spheres automatically convert from Z-spheres to Dynamesh now. All you need to do to keep it from doing that, because we don't want you to do that unless it's one of your 3 random builds that you want to do that workflow, it's totally fine. I know this gets confusing. But for your Z-sphere only build, you have to work with Z-sphere topology. So what you do, and this will make more sense to you, I talk about it in the video, you just take, there's a Dynamesh resolution slider in the Z-sphere window, you pull it down to 0, and it'll keep it at regular Z-sphere topology. But if everybody's here, anybody saying nobody switched yet? 4R8, they're all in 4R7? You're 4R8, okay. So you would be the only one that needs to worry about it, okay? Because it will automatically turn it into Dynamesh. We can always tell the edges are soft, and we know. It's a good workflow, but we want you to see and experience sculpting with Z-sphere geometry and what it gives you in the star junctions and then the Dynamesh side, okay? But the next thing everybody will probably get into is their Maya blockout, right? This is usually where people go to. And I know you guys are very familiar with Maya already. You know how to build. So we're just going to talk about some stuff. And I want to encourage you again to get onto FSO, go to the blockouts. Because I always get, well, how far should I go with it? That far. What kind of topology should I use? I'll zoom in on it. That type. Right, so here, this is really kind of a tutorial. We've got 2 of them. And Dynamesh would be the same thing. You put a sphere, you start shaping the torso, pull out the appendages, and go from there. Okay, but this is about where we're at. Could this have gone a little further? Yes. What we could have done was imply more of the heavy structures like the collar. You notice I'm not worried about the hat. The hat would be considered a secondary object, really. So noticing what your target is huge. Should we be putting eyes, ears, unless it's a cartoon character? Yes, we would put the big bunny ears and things like that. But we're not going to put eyes and mouth. We're not going to put, let's sculpt the shirt on there. This guy is wearing his outfit. I don't need a body underneath. Not for this production pipeline. His body is his outfit, right? So every one of the characters you choose, think about your build. Look at it and go, okay, this is pretty much a nude character. This one's wearing just this. This one's got a full outfit on. because that'll help make you or guide you into a workflow. All right. So with him, I modeled to the clothing. You can see the end result. All right, this would be the block out. I've implied the pant legs. I've implied the cuffs. The thickness of the jacket is taken care of. And his head has the basic elliptical shape of his head. Okay. I'm not, nothing more. For the Maya build, almost identical, except for a little bit less refined because, again, it's faceted. But this started as a 12-sided cylinder, 8-sided arms, 8-sided leg, and I actually modeled the hand separate. That would be something I would be okay with you modeling separate. I did a 20-sided cylinder with 8-sided cylinders for fingers. But do you have to do fingers this week? No. You can do what we call a mitten hand, paddle hand, like this. That can easily be modeled out of an 8-sided cylinder. Just extrude and keep going with it. Right? Now in Z-spheres, yeah, you might as well put the fingers in there, but go from there. Right? So with this guy here, some of the things I did with him, his head, I actually extruded up. I moved the head over, shaped it, and then moved it back and centered it up. You can always mirror, right? Copy what's on one side to the other side, and that's where he's going. But they don't have to be crazy. I mean, he's 1,200 polys finished with hands. Okay? He's more of your average standard figure. Anything that's a little bit larger, anything that's got more stuff, of course, is going to be more geometry, but this gives you a nice ballpark. 1,200 probably doesn't take a lot of geometry. Okay? So what I would recommend is going, like I said earlier, pick your characters, make any corrections to wireframe, or not wireframe, but images, then do your first reads, get into your Maya build. I would safely say coming in the next class, Wednesday, with your first reads done and your Maya build done. That would be a good time for you. Got plenty of time to do that. And that'll set you up for the rest of the week, focusing on your Z-sphere stuff. Z-sphere, Dynamesh, getting the other 5 builds done. Right? You'll be surprised how quickly they start to go. Cool. So we got some information. We got a little bit of a plan. Now you go and go to lab, and we start the integrated, and then get into your assignments. Cool. Yeah. I think there is. I saw somebody poking their head in there, so I'm thinking another class is coming. I'm not 100% sure, but that means we'll have to skedaddle until we know if they actually are coming in or not. Awesome. All right, what time you want them in lab, James?
I'm leaving pretty early, so
3:15. Okay, so you got a little bit of time. Awesome. All right, guys, have fun and get it done. Get it done. Yeah, well, I just don't know if there's going to be I saw somebody poking their head out there, so I don't know if they're going to want to be running it.
But when we start getting into like 3 o'clock on the dot,
Uh-huh.
So I was in the class like